بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين آمين. Any questions from last week? If no questions from last week, we'll start our class. Brother Fayez, he was not able to join last week. Do you know if he will be able to join today? By any chance, I forgot to ask about him. I think you're muted, Brother Marajul.
Oh, sorry, Sheikh. I was saying that he did attend the class last week. He did. He was late for the class, but he was there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Do you know if today he will join? I did not see him join.
Yes, he will.
Okay.
He's working late today again, but he will eventually.
Okay. Inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And I did give him access to the Google to the spreadsheet to the Google slide. So if he still does not have access, please ask him to let me know, inshallah.
Yes.
Okay. So Bismillah. We were talking about inflections, right? And we said that there are 4 different types of inflections. Rafa, Nasab, Khafd, and Jazm. And then we started talking about the signs for each inflection and what are the different signs for each inflection, right? And we mentioned that for Rafa, there are 4 different signs. Who remembers the 4 different signs of Rafa that we mentioned?
Sheikh, there is this Dhamma.
Yes.
Alif.
Yes.
Noon and Waw.
Very good. Jazakumullah khairan. So I know you did not read from the screen because the order was different. So I put the answer. You guys see the screen?
Yes. Right
Yeah.
now, yes.
Yeah. So I put the answer here, but Alhamdulillah, it was just kind of a help. But I noticed the order of what you said was different. So
I had
Alhamdulillah.
it memorized.
Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. So that is expected of everyone. Please memorize the different signs of Rafa. So these are the different signs of Rafa. And we said the sequence goes like this. You learn, you look at the sign, you realize this sign is the sign of Rafa. And then so you look at the sign and you realize it's a Dhamma, right? And then you say to yourself, oh, Dhamma for when it comes to singular nouns is a sign of Rafa, right? So then you say to yourself, oh, that means this singular noun is marfu', meaning it has the inflection of Rafa. And then from there, once you know it is marfu', you know its role in the sentence. For example, if I said ضرب زيد عمرا, Zaid hit Amr. As soon as you see that dhamma on type of Zaid, you know it's it has the inflection of Rafa. And once you know it has the inflection of Rafa, you automatically know that Zaid is the subject, that he's the one who is beating, who is doing the actual hitting. So that was the sequence that we mentioned last week, and the sequence is true with all signs of inflection. And one of the things that we'll study later is what do these inflection signify, right? What do they indicate in a sentence? What role do they make clear to us? What role do they manifest to us? Remember we said i'rab, which is inflection in Arabic. It means to make manifest. So what is the different roles that these inflections manifest or make obvious for us in the sentence? So but that will come later. For the time being, I just want you to know the sequence of events that take place when you read Arabic. And the sequence, like I said, you do it subconsciously. You don't actually consciously go through it, but this is how your brain understands. So now, and then we said that Dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa in 4 different places. So Dhamma had 4 different signs, and Dhamma, Rafa had 4 different signs. The first one was Dhamma, and Dhamma becomes the sign of Rafa in 4 different places. We said the first place that Dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa is the singular noun, right? The example that we gave was Ja'a Zaydun. We said the second place where a Dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa is the broken plural. The example that we gave was Ja'a Rijalu, the men came. And the third place where Dhamma becomes the sign of Rafa was the sound feminine plural, right? The example that we gave was Ja'at al-Muslimatu, the Muslim woman came. And the fourth place that we said Dhamma is a sign of Rafa was the imperfect verb, the present future verb. And the example that I gave was يكتب زيد المسألة أو يكتب زيد الكتابة. Zaid is writing the book. So I'm not gonna go over this too much because we already covered it in detail. And now the next thing, we also mentioned last week, I went through singularity, duality, and plurality with you in the Arabic language for only Rafa, for the inflection of Rafa. And we said to make something dual, you just add alif and noon to the end. And to make something plural, if it's masculine, you add a waw and a noon. And if it's feminine, you add an alif and a ta. And this is the general rule. And sometimes these rules are broken. And if these rules are broken, specifically for the plural, the rule will not be broken for the dual, but for the plural, sometimes the rule does get broken. And if that happens, you call that plural a broken plural or a plural, right? You call that plural a broken plural. And the reason I told you call it the broken plural is because the singular noun, it does not retain its original form in a broken plural, right? And the example that we gave was al-rajul and al-rijal. And I said that this noun is being broken and does not retain its original form because the jim and the lam get broken and there's an alif put in between them, right? But in the case of Muslim and Muslimani or Muslim al-Muslimuna, al-Muslim retains its form, right? You still have Muslim here. Muslim doesn't, get broken or nothing comes in between its letters, but rather you attach something to the end, right? So again, I'm not going to go over that too much because you should already know this from last week. The next thing we discussed last week was we said that, and then we started talking about the different places, the different words for which a dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa, right? The example that, and we said that a dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa in 2 different, we already went through that, right? Okay. And then we discussed where a waw becomes a sign of Rafa, right? Where a waw becomes a sign of Rafa. And we said that a waw becomes a sign of Rafa in 2 different places. The first place is في جمع المذكر السالم, in the sound masculine plural, right? And the example that I gave was جاء المسلمون. Al-Muslimuna here, is this plural or dual or singular?
It's plural.
It's plural. How do you know it's plural?
As it says al-Muslimun. So
Yeah,
Waw and a
al-Muslimun.
noon.
Wow and a noon.
Wow.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah, so it's plural. So here, how do we know that it has the inflection of Rafa? From the waw, right? Right, from the waw we know that has the inflection of Rafa because we said وَأَمَّا الْوَاوُ فَتَكُونُ عَلَامَةً لِلرَّفْعِ فِي مَوْضِعَيْنِ. In the case of al-waw, it becomes a sign of Rafa in 2 places. في جمع المذكر السالم, in the sound masculine plural, Therefore, when you say جاء المسلمون and you notice the waw between between the mim and the noon, you automatically realize that this noun has the inflection of rafa. And once you realize that, you look at the verb. It says جاء, came, and then from that, because coming requires a subject. From that, you know that al-Muslimuna is so the Muslims are the subject of the sentence. And في الأسماء الخمسة, the next place where waw becomes the sign of rafa is in the 5 exceptional nouns. And we said they're called exceptional because nouns by default, their inflection is by their critical marks. But these 5 nouns, their inflection is with letters, so they're unique in that sense. And we said those 5 nouns are abuka, akhuka, hamuki, fuka, wa dumal. Those 5 nouns are your father, your brother, your in-laws, your mouth, and possessor. Those are the meanings of those 5 nouns. So for now, I just want you to memorize those, inshallah. There is no reason to go too much into detail. But this stage is mostly memorization. And then in the next stages of the book, it'll be more it'll require more understanding than memorization, right? So inshallah, try to memorize all of these. That is why the scholars, like when I studied this book, I memorized it from beginning to end. And this is basically how everyone does it. This is a book that gets memorized because it is short, but it is full of benefit and information. Okay, so I think for now, last week I promised you to give you the verb conjugations for the imperfect verb, for the imperfect tense, for the present and the future tense, sorry. And this is it right here. So yaktubu, the lag goes away. Yaktubu means he writes. Yaktubu means he writes. Yaktubani means the 2 men write. You see how an alif and noon was added here? Now this is not an alif here. Is not. Do not confuse an alif with a sign of inflection. But we'll talk about what alif means. Alif here is a pronoun. Just for now, just realize that alif here is a pronoun, and it's not necessarily a sign of inflection like it is in the dual noun, right? But a lot of people get confused because here yaktubani is for 2 men, right? But alif is not a sign of duality, rather it is a pronoun for 2 men, right? There's a difference. So it's not a sign of a rafa, but rather it is a pronoun for 2 nouns. Okay, so here yaktubani means the 2. It means the 2 men write. Yaktubuna means the men write, meaning the men collectively as a group. So and this form is for 1 person. This form is for 2 people, and this form is for 3 men, 3 people, or 3 people or more, obviously. And they're all for the 3rd person. Let me actually add one more thing here: masculine. Third. Does everyone know the difference between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd person?
Yes.
Okay. So this is for the 3rd person, and this is also for the 3rd person. I'm just gonna put 3rd. But this is for feminine. That's the difference. Okay. So this is 3rd person masculine. This is 3rd person feminine. So when you say taktubu, it means she writes. When you say taktubani, it means the two women write. When you say yaktubna, it means the woman write, like the group of women. Can anyone tell me do you see any difference between yaktubu and taktubu here?
Yeah.
What
Sheikh, the
is the difference?
ta in
Yes.
front of the word.
Yeah. So exactly. So the ta indicates tells us that what that we're well
Feminine word.
feminine, exactly, feminine. There's more to it, but we'll talk about that in a few seconds. So that this ta tells you that if you are actually talking about the third person, this ta indicates femininity. And taktubani, um, I'm sorry, and taktubani here is for the dual, and for the dual, again, the only difference that you see between the masculine and the feminine is that you have a ta here, right? But everything else remains the same. So for the third person, a ta would indicate that you're referring to something that is feminine, or or females. Yaktubna, and this is totally different from this. So the ya did not change. However, the end of the word changed, and it became yaktubna. And this noon here is the pronoun. And this for the masculine, the waw is the pronoun, but in the feminine, the noon is the pronoun. Okay. Um, Now let's go to the second person. Second person masculine. You say taktubu. That is why I told you that I added the constraint. If you're referring to the third person, the ta indicates femininity. But if you're referring to the second person, the ta indicates, actually it would be it would indicate masculinity. So when you say taktubu, it means you're right. You're talking to a man. Uh, uh, when you say taktubani, meaning that you too write. You too. You're talking to men. Taktubuna, you all write. Again, you're talking to men. So this is masculine, so second person. And with the feminine second person, you say taktubina, and taktubina is actually for one female. You say you write. You're talking to her. And here, as you can see, the difference is you're adding a ya and a nun. You're adding a ya and a nun. Taktubani, nothing changes here. You too write. So again, how do you know that whether you're talking to two females or two males? Based on the context. Based on the context, you'll know who you're talking to. And then taktubna, this is for a plural, a group of females. If you're talking to a group of females, you say taktubna, meaning you all write. Aktubu means I write, first person. So this is first person, and it's for all. It's for females and males, right? And naktubu is we write. This is this would be first person with others, right? It's not just you. It's a group of you that are talking. We write. So these are very important to memorize. Actually, this is one of the first things that you have to memorize when you learn Arabic. So uh, I will go ahead. I apologize. I will go ahead and put the diacritical marks, inshallah, after the class. And for next week, I would like everyone to have memorized these conjugations, inshallah. They're very easy, um, and as once you memorize these things, they will pop up at you when you read the Quran. and it makes it very pleasing. It makes you very happy when you see something that's familiar in the Quran, right? So this is definitely, it will benefit you in the short term and the long term. Any questions here?
Yeah, I had a question. Just
Yes.
very quickly, is this ruling similar for most other verbs as well?
Yeah, exactly. So the reason I included just one verb, so this is this is like, once you learn one verb, you know all verbs, right? Once you know one verb, you know all verb, because the ruling is the same. This is a qaida. This is a general rule that applies to all verbs.
Sheikh,
But
one other question.
Yes.
For the feminine form, the ta, the letter ta, can appear in front or at the back of the word?
Okay, so yeah, good question.
Because for the previous, I mean, for the last week's example, when we use the example Muslim for the feminine form of the word, the ta was at the back.
Yes. So here, what we call the letters here, the letters in front of the verb. So the verb itself, let me write it. So you just have to bear with me with the lag. There's once I start sharing my screen, there's a lag. It becomes very slow. So let me write the so the verb is kataba, right? That's the verb, meaning this is the verb kataba and past tense. And to make it imperfect, you have to add certain letters to the beginning of the verb, and those letters are anaitu. You see how many letters here?
4.
4. So these 4, they call them the letters of imperfectness, huruf al-mudara'a, meaning they, once you add them to the beginning of a sentence, a verb, it indicates that automatically makes them what? It makes them imperfect. So what did we do to kataba here? In this case, which one of these letters did we add to kataba in this case?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. In this case, we added ta. In this case, we added ta. In this case, we added ta. In this case, we added hamza, right? In this case, we added nun. So the ta does not necessarily tell you in this with the imperfect verb. It doesn't necessarily tell you anything about whether it's feminine or masculine. By its nature, right? By its nature, it does not tell you anything about it, because if you look at it, the ta is shared between the masculine and the feminine here, right? And the feminine third person and the masculine second person. So ta, by its nature, like, it's not something intrinsic in the ta and this ta that tells you it's feminine. However, once you realize once you understand the context of the sentence, then the ta could tell you whether it's masculine or feminine, right? So it requires some help. So that's why they don't call this ta and the imperfect verb a sign of femininity, because it is not intrinsically a sign of femininity, right? It is a sign of imperfectness. However, this sign of imperfectness can tell you something about masculinity through the context, not by itself. But with the other ta that we said, which is the silent feminine ta, that ta is intrinsically, like, it indicates femininity. Does that make sense? It does not require anything else for you. It does not require help from anything else to convey the meaning of femininity. Does that make sense, brother Marajul?
Yes, the context doesn't require.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the difference, but that's a good question, because I should have mentioned this from the beginning. So these are the letters of mudari'a. These are the letters of imperfectness, all the letters that you see at the beginning. So those okay, so let me just break it down a bit more, since we started this, Rob. So the first letter that you see in the imperfect verb is the letter of what? Of mudara, the letter of imperfectness. The first letter that you see after the last letter of the original of the verb itself, which is, so the verb itself is comprises of kaf, ta, ba, right? Ka, ta, ba. So if you look at yaktubu, for example, kataba is still here, but we just added a ya, right? That's the only difference. If you look at yaktubani, for example, yaktubani, the kataba is still here in the middle. We haven't, it hasn't gone anywhere. But what we have done here is we have added a ya, which is a sign of a mudara'a, and then we have added an alif, which is a pronoun. Now here's the catch. I'm gonna see if you guys remember this. What is the noon? Okay, let me give you some help.
Sign of inflection.
Yeah, very good, very good. MashaAllah, that's beautiful. I mean, what I like about the fact is because we haven't really, I just kind of hinted, I just mentioned it briefly in one of my lectures, and we haven't really gone over it. But the fact that you realized it is a sign of inflection without actually us having gone over it, inshallah, is a good sign. It'll be it's a sign of success, inshallah, for you and for everyone else in the class. Because once baraka descends upon you, everyone else is in the class, so they won't be able to run away from it.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah. But this is not to say. So that is why I like everyone's participation, because the more you participate, the more you will have angels writing good deeds for you. So jazakumullah khairan for all those. Brother Marajul, you're also one of the ones that gets a lot of barakah. So Brother Fahad, all of you. And now I have to mention everyone.
It's all right.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Okay, yeah, so I went too far. So does everyone understand? Okay, so let me finish what I was saying here. So here, alif is a pronoun, and noon is an inflection, is a sign of rafa. Yaktubuna, ya at the beginning, the first letter is a sign of imperfectness. The waw here is a pronoun, and the noon is a sign of inflection in yaktubuna. In taktubu, we just have the ta at the beginning. It's a sign of imperfectness. Mudara'a. Taktubani, we have the ta. You already know what that is. We have the alif. The alif here is also is the pronoun. Is a pronoun. And noon is a sign of inflection. It indicates rafa. Yaktubna, ya is a letter of imperfectness. Noon is a pronoun. Taktubu, your same case. You just, if you understood these two, you should know this one. Taktubani is the same as these two. Taktubuna is the same as the first one, yaktubuna, right? I'm not gonna repeat it. I'm gonna leave it up to you to think about it. Taktubina, this one is a bit tricky. Ta is a sign of mudara'a, a sign of imperfectness. The ya here after the ba is a pronoun, and the noon is a sign of inflection. Taktubani, ta is this a letter of mudara'a. Alif is a pronoun, noon is a sign of inflection. Right? Same as these two. Taktubna, the ta is the same as everywhere else that you saw ta at the beginning. The noon is a pronoun. Aktubu, the hamza is a sign of mudara'a, a sign of imperfectness, and naktubu, noon is a sign of imperfectness. Good. Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
What is it?
So does this apply to nasab as well? These rules?
Yeah,
Can
very
they?
good. Barakallah fikum, very good. This is brother Nasruddin, right? I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the video. Yeah,
Yes. Mr. Idris.
brother Nasruddin, beautiful question. This is actually so what will be different between for these words for these verbs when it comes to different inflection is whether if it's for just one person for it's whether you have dhamma or a fatha or a jazm, right, or a sukun. So for the single person, for just one, if you're if you are referring just to one person when you're saying that verb, a dhamma will become the sign of rafa at the end. A fatha will become the sign of nasab, and sukun will become the sign of jazm, right? And in the case of all the verbs that you see a noon at the end, except these two, that noon is a sign of rafa. So if you, as soon as you see this noon, you know that this is marfu, that this has the inflection of rafa. However, if this noon gets is deleted, is removed, that tells you that that verb is no longer no longer has the inflection of rafa, but rather it has one of the other two inflections, which is either nasab or jazm. And those two you will know by looking at the agents that come before them. But that is good. So what we have here is actually in the case of rafa. Now I have to add one more thing here, so you know. Okay. So this is all for what? Al-Rafa. So this is all for Al-Rafa. What I have discussed here is Al-Rafa. But if it's Jazm, I wouldn't have said yaktubu, I would have said yaktub with sukun. If it I wouldn't have said yaktubani, I would have said yaktuba. I would have said yaktubu, taktub, taktuba, yaktubna. This wouldn't change. تكتب تكتبا تكتبوا تكتبي تكتبي تكتبا تكتبن. This wouldn't change as well. أكتب نكتب. This would have, if the inflection was different, that's how I would have pronounced them. But since I was pronouncing them assuming that they're marfu, meaning they have the inflection of rafa, I pronounced them the way I did. Good question. Jazakumullah khairan. I guess that is something else I'll go ahead and add to the slide to make it more clear. Any more questions? Okay. Alhamdulillah. وأما الألف, the Muallif says رحمه الله, وأما الألف فتكون علامة للرفع في تثنية الأسماء خاصة. And this is actually the first material that we're covering today. The first material from the book that we're covering today. The Muallif says, the author rahimahullah, he says, in the case of al-alif, it becomes, in the case of al-alif, Brother Radwan left the meeting, I believe.
No, I'm here.
Who? Someone left the meeting. I'm not sure who did.
What happened is like I mistakenly pressed the screenshot button.
I see. Okay. Yeah, we're just gonna wait for you till you rejoin, but since you're here, it's fine. So in the case of al-alif, it becomes a sign of rafa and the dual nouns only. So basically we said how many signs of rafa are there? We have dhamma, we have alif, we have waw, and we have noon. We covered al-dhamma, we covered al-waw. Now we're covering an alif, the alif. And alif becomes a sign of rafa in only one place. Where is that place? And the dual noun. And we already mentioned the dual nouns, right? How do you make something dual? You if it's marfu, you add an alif and a noon to it, right? So that's straightforward. I won't spend more time on that. And then the next one, the next sign that the author mentions, وأما النون فتكون علامة للرفع في الفعل المضارع إذا اتصل به ضمير تثنية أو ضمير جمع أو ضمير المؤنثة المخاطبة. In the case of a noon, it becomes a sign of rafa in the imperfect verb when a dual noun or a plural noun or a second person feminine noun is attached to its end. Now this is what we have been talking about. This is actually what Brother Muhammad answered. I'm sorry if there are some people working outside of our house, so if there's a background noise, I apologize. So basically, a noon becomes a sign of rafa and the 5 verbs. Now you may ask, what are those 5 verbs? Those 5 verbs are actually, we already mentioned them here. So the masculine third person for 2 people, the masculine third person for 3 people, the masculine the feminine third person for 2 people, and the feminine third person for a group of people, for 3 or more people, the masculine second person for 2 people, and the masculine second person for a group of people, and the feminine second person for one female, and the feminine second person for 2 women. Yeah, so these are the 5 verbs. Now you may ask yourself, we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We counted 7 verbs. Why do we call them the 5 verbs? It's a trick question. Does anyone know the answer?
Yes, because there are some verbs that are similar for both male and female.
Yes, very good. So taktubani, taktubani, taktubani. These 3 will be considered 1, right? So if out of 7, 3 of them are considered 1, you're left with 5. I'll leave it up to you to do the math, inshallah. So we will treat all these 3 as 1. So in that case, it'll be, actually, I'll do the math here as well. Since this is not a math class, I don't expect you to do the math. So yaktubani is 1, yaktubuna is 2, taktubani, 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 that's 3, taktubuna, that's 4, taktubina, that's 5. I lost the video. Okay, sorry. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Is everything clear? Because as soon as this becomes boring or it's not clear, please let me know, and then inshallah we'll change it up a little bit. But the important thing is, as long as you guys stay in the class.
Yes, clear.
Okay, this does require a lot of attention, so that is why I emphasize. Okay, so we are done with the signs of rafa. We are done with the signs of rafa. Now we will talk about the signs of nasab. How many inflections? We said that there are 4 inflections. Can someone name all 4 for me?
Sheikh, Rafa,
Yes.
Nasab,
Yes.
Jazam,
Yes.
and Khafad.
Khafad. Beautiful. So we went through Dhamma right now. I'm sorry, we went through Al-Rafa right now, right? Which is one of the inflections. And we went through all the signs of Al-Rafa, which were Dhamma, Al-Waw, Al-Alif, and Nun. And we also went through the places where each of these signs become a sign of Rafa. So we accomplished, actually, we did accomplish a lot in the previous 2 classes. But the important thing is to memorize those things that you mentioned. Now, the next thing that we'll talk about is an-nasab, the inflection and-nasab. So again, we will go this through the same order. The first thing that we'll mention are the signs of nasab. What are the signs of nasab? And the Mu'allif rahimahullah says, وَلِلنَّصْبِ خَمْسُ عَلَامَات. Nasab has 5 signs. Al-Fathatu. The first sign of nasab is Al-Fatha, which linguistically means opening, right? The second sign of nasab is Wal-Alif. Wal-Alifu. This is the first letter in the Arabic alphabet. The third one is Wal-Kasratu. This is the diacritical mark Al-Kasra. It means breaking, right? And we said when you pronounce the Kasra, you're kind of breaking your bottom lip. So that's a relationship between the linguistic meaning and what's actually happening when you pronounce it. And then the fourth sign of nasab is Al-Ya, the letter. This is the 28th letter in the Arabic alphabet, right? And the fifth sign of nasab is وحذف النون. This is the emission of nun. Emission of an-nun. The examples that I have here: رأيت زيدا, I saw Zaid. رأيت أباك. You see how there's a fatahtain here? We have tanween, a fatha and a nun at the end of Zaid. So that tells you that Zaid is, what is it? Zaid is
a noun.
a noun, exactly. It tells you it's a noun that has a tanween. And it also tells you, because there's a fatha, it tells you that it has the inflection of nasab. Now here, I'm going to use a word that you may not be fully familiar with that often. So I'll try to explain it first before I start using it. Who knows what a maqtul is? Maqtul in Arabic. Who knows what a qatil is in Arabic? Okay. Who knows what a zalim is? Zalim in Arabic.
I think qatil is a killer and the zalim is an oppressor.
Exactly. Who answered?
There is one.
Good one, barakallah. So qatil is a killer, and al-zalim is the oppressor. But al-zalim is something that we are all familiar with. I think in all of our languages, al-zalim is used. Zulum and zalim. And on the other hand, madloom is when you say, oh, this person is madloom, or this group of people, they're madloom.
They are helpless.
I'm sorry?
Innocent, or as he probably said, helpless.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. I apologize.
So the oppressed ones are madloom.
Yeah, very good. I believe Brother Radwan said the same thing, but I couldn't hear what he said. So mazlum are the oppressed ones. So zalim is the oppressor. Al-mazlum is the oppressed, right? So zalim is the subject. If you were to put them in a sentence, zalim would be the subject and al-mazlum would be the object. So when we say al-rafa, if we want to implement this inflection on a word, after we implement this inflection on it, after we perform this action of rafa on it, it becomes marfu'. You see how madloom, you see how it rhymes with marfu', madloom, marfu'. So in Arabic, there's a qaida. Whenever you want to derive or conjugate the dur from a verb, you add an alif between the first two letters of the verb. Just like dhulm, how did you make zalim out of dhulm? You added an alif between the dha and the lam, right? It became zalim. So that is a general rule. That is how you derive the agent noun from it. And if you want to derive the object noun, or whatever it's called, you add a waw, you add a meme to the beginning and a waw between the last letter and the second to the last letter. So what did we do to al-Zulm? We added an alif to make it zalim, and we added a meme and a waw to make it mazlum, right? So from Zulm we got zalim, and from Zulm we got mazlum, right? And obviously there's when you make this is I made it a bit simple, but that is the basic qaida. So now here I will the reason I mentioned this is because I will start referring to the words that have the inflection of rafa as marfu', and I will start referring to the words that have the inflection of nasab as mansub. I will start referring to the words that have the inflection of khafd as makhfud, and I will start referring to the words that have the inflection of jazm al-majzum, right? Why? Because they are the words that the inflection is acted upon. We have performed the inflection on, right? Or they are the words that have accepted those inflections, right? For I would be then in that case I would be a rafa, and the word would be marfu, because I imposed rafa upon it, and it became marfu. Just like a zalim imposes zulm upon a mazlum, and it becomes mazlum. Here the same. Similarly, I will go ahead and implement. I will go ahead and impose the inflection of rafa upon a word, and it becomes what? It becomes marfu. Rafa marfu. So that's the reason I give you that background, so you know once I start saying marfu, mansub, majzum, makhfud, what I mean by that. Okay. So here I will go ahead and add a slide here just to explaining that qaida as well, that general rule for your reference, inshallah. So here ra'aytu zaydan. Zaydan is mansub. Why? Because it has the inflection of nasab. How do you know it has nasab? How do you know it's mansub? Because it has a fatha. Fatha is one of the signs of nasab. For the al-alif, the example that I have is ra'aytu abaka. I saw your dad. I saw your dad. How do you know that abaka, which is one of the 5 exceptional nouns, how do you know abaka is mansub? Is because of this alif. Wal kasra. And the third sign of nasab al-kasra, the example that I have is akramtul muslimati. I was generous to the Muslim woman. How do we know that muslimati is mansub? Because of the kasra at the end of the ta, at the bottom of the ta, right? Al-kasra. Al-ya becomes the 4th sign of nasab. The example I have is I woke up the heedless. How do we know that the heedless are mansub? We know through the siyah, right? And the omission of noun, lan yaktubu, they will not write. Yaktubu is one of the 5 verbs that we mentioned previously, and we have, as you can see, we have removed the noon. And the removal of the noon is actually one of the signs of nasab. Okay, so we just mentioned the second inflection and nasab, and we mentioned the 5 signs of that inflection: al-fatha, al-alif, al-kasra, al-ya, wa hadf al-noon.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is just like for the last part, like the omission of al-noon. That is just when we are reading or when we are saying it. Eventually, the noon is there, but we actually omit. Example, there is a ghunna or I'm not sure. I forgot.
Okay. Yeah. So this is actually this is a bit different. So I think you're mentioning the rules of tajweed. For the rules of tajweed, yes, you still write the noon, but sometimes you like the noon is merged with something else, right? So you don't necessarily pronounce it. But in this case, this would not apply because these are concrete rules of grammar that apply both to writing and reading. Yeah. So
Okay.
the rules of tajweed are different. The rules of tajweed, a lot of times you usually write these things, but you pronounce them in a certain way depending on what comes before them and what comes after them, right? Or
But
but
eventually here,
yeah.
but the omission is actually not like, for example, it's not a visible omission. Like you don't just take the noon and leave it, and
Yeah,
rather when you're writing it, it's there, but when you're reading it, it's not there, or when you're saying it, it's not there.
no, actually, this is actually a literal emission. You're actually removing the nun. So that's why I said
Okay.
that's the difference. That's the difference between the rules of tajweed and the rules of grammar. Uh, uh, so I understand what you're coming from a tajweed background that that would apply, but to grammar, when we say hatfun nun or the emission of nun, we're literally meaning the emission of nun, removing nun altogether, both from pronunciation and from writing.
So where was the noon then in the last part? That lan yaktubu.
Yeah, so the nun here originally uh, originally it was yaktubuna.
Aha, okay. So okay, alles klar. Thank you.
Yeah, so we
Jazakallah.
removed in no problem. We removed the noon, and usually that's what happens when you remove the noon. You add an alif, which doesn't get really pronounced. So,
Okay.
but that's something we'll talk about later. The reason why that alif is added. It's not important for this class. Trying to okay. Okay, so next we are going to talk about each sign of nasab and where they become a sign of nasab. Okay, in what places they become a sign of nasab. فأما الفتحة فتكون علامة للنصب في ثلاثة مواضع. In the case of al-fatha, it becomes a sign of nasab in 3 different places. في الاسم المفرد رأيت زيدا. In the singular noun, right? In the singular noun, it becomes a sign of what?
Nasab.
Nasab. Now let me. This lag is killing me. Okay, let me write what it translates to. I saw Zaid. Okay, رأيت زيدا means I saw Zaid. So here you see that Zaid, you notice it's a singular noun, right? What's the sign of nasab for a singular noun? We just mentioned it right now.
Fatha.
Al-fatha, yes. Al-fatha is a sign of nasab for a singular noun. So you know Zaid is a singular noun, and you see that it has a fatha. You automatically know what? You know it's mansub. You know it has the inflection of nasab. And
Yes.
then you look at the sentence. There are 2 people in the sentence. It is you and Zaid. You're saying I saw Zaid. Okay, then you realize Zaid, because it has the inflection of nasab. And nasab indicates the fact that something is an object. You automatically know that Zaid is the object in the sentence. So you know that Zaid is being seen and you are seeing, right? So this is actually I could have come up with a better example, I guess. I'll write the famous example that everyone uses, but so you'll see in Arabic, you'll see Amr getting hit a lot by Zaid, because that's the example that keeps on getting used in Arabic books. Um, so I'll give you the other example, which will make it more clear. ضرب زيد أمرا. ضرب زيد عمرا. Now here, ضرب, it means Zaid hit Amr. Zaid hit Amr. Zaid hit Amr. So here, you look at the sentence. You see that Zaid has a dhamma and Amr has a fatha. Okay, so what happens? What is the sequence here? You realize, you know that Zaid is a singular noun and Amr is also a singular noun. You see a fatha on Amr, you automatically realize that Amr is mansub. You see a dhamma on Zaid, you automatically realize that Zaid is marfu'. And then you realize, because you know that rafa indicates subject, something is a subject, and nasab indicates something is an object. What does your brain tell you? It tells you that Zaid is hitting and Amr is being hit, right? So when you say daraba Zaidun Amran, you realize that Zaid is the subject and Amr is the object. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now I want you, when you read the Quran, start thinking about these things, even though if you don't understand it completely, but start thinking about them. It'll make it very very interesting and pleasurable when you read it. The Wajam al-Taksiri, the next place where a fatha becomes a sign of nasab is the broken plural. The example I have is Ra'aytu rijala, I saw the men. This is the broken plural, and we have a fatha on top of lam at the last letter. This tells you that al-rijal is mansub, and because you know al-rijal is mansub, you realize that al-rijal, you go to the next step and you say to yourself, that means that al-rijal is the object of the sentence, and you are seeing, and al-rijal are being seen. Okay, and then the third place where fatha becomes a sign of nasab, وفي الفعل المضارع إذا دخل عليه ناصب ولم يتصل بآخره شيء. And in the imperfect verb, when a nasab, meaning an agent of nasab, comes before it and nothing is attached to its end. Okay. What do we mean by nothing is attached to its end? Meaning none of those pronouns that we mentioned are attached to its end. Right? If we go back to previous slide. Okay, you remember we said, when I broke this down for you, I said this alif is a pronoun, this waw is a pronoun, this alif is a pronoun, this ya is a pronoun, the alif in both of these is pronoun, waw here is a pronoun. So so these are these are being attached to the end of the verb, right? The verb by itself without anything being attached to it is the is yaktubu, for example, or taktubu, aktubu, naktubu, right? These 5 are the verbs that have nothing attached to their end. Now, what the author is saying here, if nothing is attached to its end, if nothing is attached to its end, that means its inflection is not with a noon, but rather with diacritical marks. So he's saying that the imperfect verb, when an agent of nasab comes before it and nothing is attached to its end, its inflection, its sign of nasab will become a fatha. So the example I have here, وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Allah Azza wa Jal will never allow a victory for non-believers over Muslims, over believers. Now this means encompassing, holistic victory, right? You may have battles here and there, but holistic victory, encompassing victory will never be given to non-believers over believers. So inshallah, we'll stop here because we already did cover a lot, I believe, for this lecture. Any questions?
Yes, Sheikh. I guess I am not still clear with the diacritical marks, what exactly it means.
So diacritical marks, they are the harakas. So in Arabic, they're harakas, right? They're the harakas. They're not the letters. In English, you would call them short vowels or diacritical marks. So now let me add a slide here. Actually, I will add a slide a little bit earlier. Maybe I could just add it here. I'll go ahead and write all the diacritical marks for you here.
Jazakallah khair.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the first let's start with Dhamma. And then a Fatha, then Kasra. Okay. I'll make these big. I'll make these bigger in a second. But like I said, this it's okay. I mean, it's good as review. I don't mind going over it as review, but this is, as I mentioned earlier, this would be something that you would have to know by yourself, or meaning you would have to study outside of class to know exactly what these diacritical marks are, because this is part of the basic reading of the Arabic, writing and reading of Arabic language. But like I said, it's totally fine. It's good to have a review on them. So I'll go ahead and quickly mention them for those who may not be familiar with them. Okay. So these are the diacritical marks. Or can you see them, or are they too small?
Sheikh, it's visible.
Okay. Okay, I made it a bit bigger. So these are the diacritical marks. This is Dhamma, this is Fatha, this is Kasra, this is Dhamtin, Fathatin, Kasratin, and this is Sukun. Now these are.
I want to know exactly which ones to actually, because we did actually learn with these diacritical marks since the beginning of our lives. So I just wanted to make sure that I was following correctly. Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم بارك الله فيكم بارك. No, جزاكم الله خير. And like I said, it's good to have at least a quick review of this, because some people, it may have probably helped other people as well. So جزاكم الله خير, brother Muhammad.
Well, yeah.
Let me do this. I'll add another slide here. I will actually write the name of each of these critical marks in Arabic, in English and Arabic as well. So you can just go back to it and read over it if you need to. But inshallah, we'll stop here. Any other questions? Was everything clear today?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
And were there any technical difficulties that I should know about? My voice, the camera, the screen sharing?
Sheikh, except for the slowness of your voice, I think everything else was quite okay.
Oh, there was a delay in my voice?
Not the delay in the voice.
I think it was there was something wrong with the connection or something. Even when my connection is a bit slow, it lags for when I hear from other people. It would still lag from their side if my connection is slow.
Yeah, so
I guess
inshallah,
overall the internet is not going very well because for the past few weeks I have also noticed around the whole world the internet is going really slow. That might also be a reason for that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, inshallah. But let's hope the video will be better. Hopefully, the video would have captured everything. Inshallah. But if not, please feel free. If my voice was cut off in any part of the is cut off in any part of the video, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have.
Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم بارك الله فيكم. I will stick around for a few more minutes for those who want to ask questions after the recording. But inshallah we'll stop here and we'll stop the recording as well. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
So
Wa alaikum